Hi, my name is Rukis and welcome to everything you wanted to know about SEED, the new MMO game from Klang games. So in our quest to understand everything about SEED, in this episode we're looking at one of the AMA question and answer sessions as posted on the SEED blog in September. So the way we'll do this is we'll look at some of the questions and try and group them into a very broad definition of what seedlings can and can't do, and see what other theories we can tease from that. Disclaimer here, keep in mind that this may or may not end up in the actual game, but we'll have some fun theorizing about what could be in the meantime. So one of the first questions is about cannibalism. And the question here is about what seedlings can do and what happens to them. So from this we can maybe take that seedlings will be able to make mistakes, such as eating the wrong food, which might be poisonous, or entering a dangerous area. And the effect on that seedling could be physical. They might get sick or they might die, but it could also be mental. So they might suffer from depression, they might get angry, get sad. And the effect on the player is that your seedlings may not perform as you wish. They might decide not to work as hard, or so you have to consider their mood and how to improve that. So it's possible to work them to death, I think, and it might be possible that the seedlings might tell you, listen boss, stick this job, and you need to consider that if the parents of a seedling dies, it might have an effect on the child. And if they are not old enough, the question is, who takes care of them? What do you do with those seedlings? Are they still under your influence? Do they become homeless? So the next question is about seedlings without a player. So the question here is, what happens to those seedlings if the player abandons them or doesn't take care of them well enough? It's been noted that possibly they could stray from the player, although they are loyal to the player. If the player doesn't take care of them, they might become bored, they might react, they might stop working. Then we'll have to see. So from that we can take that maybe the seedlings can leave a player and maybe join another player, or a player can assign them to someone else. Let's say you're going on holiday and you're going to be gone for 3 weeks, not being able to play the game. What's going to happen to your seedlings? And if they have no player, what's the effect on that seedling? Do they become homeless, or do they become criminals in order to survive? So you might need to take into account that for your settlement, for your seedlings, there might be other seedlings around that could wreak havoc in your town or with your food production. Then the question is, if they get angry enough or they get unhappy enough, do they create riots? Does the loyalty factor change? Who then determines what their daily routine is? Is it the AI? We'll have to see. So the question then, as a player, can you catch those seedlings? Can you put them in jail? Is it something that they would be able to rehabilitate from as a criminal, be able to join society again? So we'll have to see. So in the next question, this is about seedling versus other seedling. It's been noted that possibly seedlings would fight each other. There would be attacks, there might be combat, but keeping in mind that the mental state of that seedling would be affected. Does that mean that a seedling is able to attack another seedling that's family, related to them in some way? Will they even attack and kill a friend or a family member? If yes, what would be the effect on the seedling and the community? Seedlings around that seedling would be affected. And if they are not willing to attack a family member, is that a way that the player can sort of manage risk in terms of seedling interactions? Or will it be more player to player attack and seedlings will just follow whatever the player requires them to do? This would affect your seedlings skills transfer, and it might even affect things like trade between different settlements and between different seedlings. So we're not sure what they can and can't do in that context, but we'll have to see. The next question here is about food production and how that scales up. So a seedling settlement would have to be able to produce enough food to look after itself, to look after the seedlings in that settlement, but also there's been mention of producing food on a much larger scale, and then shipping that, harvesting that, shipping it to other settlements. Maybe there's a central city where you would send all the extra food that your settlement is producing and maybe earn income from that. That gives maybe indication that there would be taxes that you'll need to pay to sell your produced food in that market environment. But it also mentions here in the answer to this question that you can set up maybe rooftop farms. That for me a very exciting concept, because that already has real world applications and examples, and it would be great to test that out in the game to see that while you can build a city, but you can make sort of small farming production areas that cater for that block of seedlings, that building for their food production maybe. And that's exciting because it means we can take real world solutions and see if we can implement them in the game, and thereby maybe learning from our own mistakes in the real world environment and testing that and applying that in this simulated environment. So the next question here is if there are seasons and how they will affect seedlings. So definitely there's seasonality, and it will be a big part of the game, and it will affect seedlings. So from a basic point of view, like temperature, for example, it would affect your seedling if they don't have the right clothing, even though cloning is only slated to be part of the game much later in development. That would affect your seedling's ability to survive, and it will raise the question, how will we stock up for food items during winter? But if the technology is available, then the growing environment can be controlled despite the seasons. So we'll have to see what the impact of that is. But the seasons can also have other implications, like trade routes closing down or harsher conditions, maybe making shipping and travel a lot more difficult. And we don't know how severe the seasons will be or what the general climate will be like on the planet. And again, taking into account seedlings being affected in terms of mood, that means they might be able to get the winter blues, or maybe happiness during spring or summer. So our next question here is around CCTV, and even though it's not specifically around what seedlings can and can't do, it's a way for the player to check what the seedlings are up to. There has to be a way that you can check up on your seedlings while you are offline, and there's been mentioned that through the mobile app is a way of getting reports on seedling activity and progress, and not just necessarily for your day-to-day seedling actions, but also in case of events like attack or other world events that you might get a notification. So there should be a way for you to check in with your seedlings to see if they are doing what you're expecting them to do. So in this last question, we're looking at expeditions, and the question is about travel and whether seedlings will be able to go on sort of expeditions, travel long distances. And there's a couple of practical questions here around, what they are able to carry, what sort of inventory can they take with them, or will they have to set up a food production every couple of days or weeks in terms of their travel, or if there are enough settlements around, maybe they'll be able to go from settlement to settlement during the travel and buy food from that settlement, maybe trade other tools with them, maybe even work in that town or city for a while in order to earn an income to buy food. So we'll have to see what happens there. But the practical things on those travels is something we need to consider. What they will eat, how will they travel, What happens if they encounter monsters, maybe diseases, maybe other settlements, maybe other risks on this planet that we are not aware of. Presumably you'll be able to move your seedlings from town to town as they travel, but the towns may not be friendly. They might not be willing to trade goods. The player might be building a settlement and want to keep all food production and all production of tools and other equipment for his or her own seedlings. And again, if you travel to unexplored regions, it's mentioned that you might find resources in certain areas that are a lot more resource intensive than other areas. So presumably you'll need to travel around to find the best place to set up your settlement, the best combination of resources available in that area. And if you are the first one or one of the first to find a specific resource, that might put you in a position to trade on the open markets, a resource that other players would definitely need to find. So on this planet, whose name we've now learned is Avesta, there's a few exciting opportunities that are being created here, and that I think the Discord community needs to consider and discuss. So if I can mention 4 here, first being will there be players that create a safe trade or a safe travel route, and maybe create maps that will guide you to say, well, if you travel from this town to that settlement, that's a safe area. They are willing to trade. This is what they will trade in those settlements. So you can sort of plan your expedition and where to set up your seedlings, giving them the best chance of survival. Second one to consider is, will there be players who prey on other seedlings and settlements and create sort of piracy or criminal zones, where if you enter there, you are likely to be attacked or raided. Another one to consider, will there be players who focus on commerce and production of food items that will allow your seedlings to travel far and wide, without having to worry about food. So you can plan an expedition or travel, or you can focus on developing certain resources, knowing that you can supplement that from other settlements. And also, will there be players focusing on currency or trade, and maybe even collecting taxes or interest? Will there be a setting up of banks? We'll have to see. So a lot of things still to consider, hopefully planned for later in the development of the game, but we'll have to see. So thanks. If you like this video, please hit the like button and leave a comment. If you want to see more, hit the subscribe button. Support me on Patreon if you are willing, and I'll see you again next time. Cheers.